guest today has been a serial entrepreneur, host of radio show Sapne Salamat, and a traveler all over the world in search for knowledge. Welcome, Rohit.
Thank you for having me, Ina.
We're really glad to have you. I've read up on some of your websites and a lot about you.
And I don't believe everything you read in print, Harbeer.
Well, that's a good thing. That's what we're going to ask you today.
Okay.
So with all that, diverse background, you seem to be a serial entrepreneur, a philanthropist, you've done a lot of traveling. It's like you're an entrepreneur of life. Did you always think when you look back that this is how my life is going to be? Or did you have a certain experience that you can remember back and saying you knew you were going to be an entrepreneur one day?
I am actually the kid that you hear about as a 10-year-old who had a Lucky 7 stall in his backyard. That was me. Because I honest to goodness did that. I think 10-year-old.
Describe us, how were you as a child?
Oh my lord, that's a hard one. I think I was a good kid.
I think you have to ask your parents.
Yeah, but when I talk to folks, they say you were a riot. A total ruckus. In fact, I have my brother visiting from India right now, and he was just completely. So
well, to ask him that, we should have his family. And
I think next time we're going to validate this with them here.
But
you obviously sound like you didn't like the whole boundaries thing. So what was the reason behind it? Is it all freedom? Is it independence? What is it that you really wanted?
I think it's all of the above, actually. So it is freedom, it is independence, and it's, we all always talk about living life on one's terms, and we all talk about the fact of one life to live. I decided to embrace it a little bit more than most people would like to, and the whole idea is, I actually only have one life to live, and I don't want to show up at the pearly gates and say, I wish I had done this or I wish I had done that. So when I show up at the pearly gates and St. Peter's there, I say, hey, guess what? I did it all, or I tried almost all, because I don't think we'll ever be able to do it all. But at least strive for it as much as you can.
Is that how you started Sapne Salamat?
In some ways, yes. So I sort of started Sapne Salamat because I saw there was a real need for somebody to be able to go out and mentor young entrepreneurs. And I wish somebody had mentored me when I was starting my first company or my second company or my third company. And you always miss that. And what's happened today in the Valley is there's a lot of entrepreneurial activity going on, but a lot of the entrepreneurial activity is tied into kickbacks where the guy says, I'm going to become an advisor, I'm going to become a mentor, but I want a piece of the action. And I said, wait a minute, we've already created this massive knowledge pool. Why don't we go out and just share this knowledge pool within the community and empower more people to go out?
So when people called you in because they knew that you had that experience and you could share all that, what was a common theme or common question you had?
Lots of common questions. A lot of people are looking for money. But I think more importantly, what the commonality that I found was a lot of people end up talking about it and not following through. Everybody says, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to start a company next month. I'm going to start a company next year or the year after. But they don't really follow through.
And why is that? Is it fear of something?
Bingo. Dead on the head. That's exactly what we found, or at least what I discovered was it is fear. It's a fear of two kinds of fears. I actually ended up doing a show about that, in fact. It's fear of failure, and it's also fear of the unknown. And it's a combination of those two failures that prevents people from being able to go out and really pursue their dreams. Because it's like, hey, you're going down this really dark passage and you have no idea how to navigate and there's no lights and you don't know what's going on.
And probably as a part of South Asian culture, that in itself is something that people think those are not the right values, right? You should never fail, you should never be adventurous, you should always know where you're going.
Oh, precisely, because South Asian culture really frowns upon failure, and failure is just a way to learn how to do things better, right?
So, what were we talking earlier? We were just talking about this, that failure is such a cultural difference where here people think about failure as a way to get somewhere, whereas Thomas Edison said there's 99 ways not to build a light bulb, right? Which is the same thing here, but our culture doesn't really see things that way.
No, it doesn't. And I think, even when you talk, I'll tell you how, in our culture, if you look at people always talk about the fact that, oh, my son works for Yahoo or my daughter works for Google. It's like if they work for a big company, they've made it big. Not realizing that you could be working for a small company and be really making much better than that. So,
yeah, but you heard so many ideas on the phone. I used to hear you actually. I would hear people calling and saying, I have this idea. How do you identify the right idea and the idea that will actually turn into a reality?
Ooh, I think if anybody knew the answer to that one, that right there is the crystal ball, Ina. Because that's what VCs are looking for. And they're all trying to figure out which is the right idea, which is the one that's going to work. So I don't think anybody can say that I know this is going to work. You're all sort of saying, I think this is going to work. Or I'm pretty sure it's going to work. But you can never know that it's going to work. Because building a business, starting a company is a very
So as long as you have an idea, there you go.
So you just got to be willing to take a risk.
No. Let's not oversimplify it. I think that's step one. As long as you have an idea, you're starting down the right path. Now you've got to figure out what am I going to do with this idea. Because so many people talk about the fact that, oh, I had this idea to put video on the web, and guess what? YouTube made $1.6 billion out of it. It's like, you know what, guys? It takes a lot more than idea. It takes a hell of a lot of execution.
That's right. They say planning, execution is as important as the idea you have. But coming back to the point you had made earlier, You've done, I mean, so much. You've traveled the world. You've been a serial entrepreneur. You've been a philanthropist. So coming back to that, it seems to me your travels had a lot to do with this as well. I mean, you took some serious amount of time off for this, right?
I took 5 years off to travel the world.
5 years?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But what's behind that? Why? Why?
It's that whole passion to live. I have one life to live.
So 5 years you traveled, only traveled,
yes.
You did not work at all?
No work, no consulting, no nothing, just traveling the world.
So where did you go? Where did you go?
So, okay, I got to point out a couple of things. First of all, you give me too much credit for philanthropy, and I'm not willing to take that credit because I don't think I've done much with, or almost anything with philanthropy up to this point. It's something I'd aspire to do one day, but I haven't done much yet. Second thing, travel, I think, is sort of like knowledge. So the more you learn, the more you realize how little of the world you've seen. And 5 years, I visited about 50 countries.
What is the most important thing you learned out of all the travel that you've done?
What did I learn? My biggest takeaway, I think I'd come back to what I was about to say, which is travel is like knowledge. The more you travel, the more you realize how little of the world you've seen. It is such a vast world out there. And my personal pleasure or my personal choice of traveling is I want to see the local sounds, the local smells, and just completely immerse myself in the culture. So if I'm out in East Africa...
What were some of the surprises? Let's hear you.
Surprises. Languages. In Swahili, guess what the word for a vehicle is?
What is it?
Gadi.
Really?
Like Gadi. What's a shop called?
Dukan?
Duca.
Okay.
In Italian, what's pineapple? Or Spanish for that matter? Ananas. So there's amazing language commonalities. You never think about it. It opens your mind in so many different ways. You think, I'm an engineer, I'm a geek, I'm going to go do this. And then you say, wait a minute, I'm traveling. Okay, I'm going to travel the world. And then you say, wait, there's language stuff happening. I went out and spent some time with Diane Fossey's group of gorillas. I mean, 260 mountain gorillas left in the world.
Wow, that must have been an adventure.
Oh, heck yeah.
That must have been an adventure.
That was one hell of an adventure.
There's never enough learning that we can do from entrepreneurs like him and people
actually, entrepreneurs as well as, I just recalled.
Don't call him philanthropist.
Not philanthropy. Well, he's aiming for that. But the other side of it is that you have a few patents. You've got so much going on. I think that's what we want to give our audience today. I mean, you have such an adventurous life. Patents, entrepreneurship, a TV show, or...
A radio show.
Radio show.
And now a TV show, thanks to you ladies.
Radio show. So
maybe one day, yes.
Yes.
And when I met him for the first time, I asked him, what do you do? And he said, I travel. I'm like, travel? That's all you do? He says, yeah, all I do is travel. I said, where do you get the money? He says, I made it earlier.
Yes.
Really? Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Sure.
So you make your money and then you travel.
So life is a one-way street. So find yourself and your dreams. Believe in the out-of-the-box by challenging yourself to go beyond the day-to-day. Maybe you'll discover an adventure and your dreams coming true.